Okay, in the last tutorial I did, I showed you how to rig up a hand using the puppet tool and null objects. Now I'm going to show you something that's something else is to add controls to your character. I'll show you how I did a breathing control, and then we'll actually do a hand gripping control to show, just to make a slider to make the hand open and close a little bit. So the controller that I've built right now, I've actually created a text layer called controls, and in the effect controls here I made a slider for breathing, and then I have a blink slider, and I usually create an object that I can call controls, and obviously I can turn it on or off if I want it visible or not. And this is where I put a lot of my control elements. So right now I have a slider that manages his blinking. So if you can see, as I slide this over, he blinks, his eyes blink, open and close. Eventually what I'll do is I'll also attach the movement of his pupil to this, or his iris, so his eyes move slightly up and down to go with it. But right now I also have attached to this, built in, is a slider for his breathing. So as you can see, as he breathes in and out, his arms are moving, his hands are moving, his shoulders are moving, and there's all this stuff going on inside the puppet. And essentially what I can do is I can eventually just animate this moving back and forth, and then on top of this animate movements. So also, I'll just have you take a quick just look here, is if you notice I actually have, when something is red like this, it means it has an expression attached to it. And as you can see, the code that I have stuck on this is that basically, well, this is what I did. I pick whipped this rotation, so it says take this rotation and subtract. I want to subtract, I'm going to pick whip up here, the breathing slider from this rotation. So that means it's always going to consider this rotation, but it's going to add or subtract this onto it. The reason I'm subtracting is because when I'm on the other side, I want to add it, just because it mirrors the slider. And I'm dealing with rotations. I've linked it to rotations. On the stomach here, I've actually done a very similar thing. So as he's breathing, I have a little piece of code here that says breathing. I basically did breathing equals, and then I pick whipped up here to grab the slider. So that way I can assign a variable to the slider. So this variable breathing here equals the slider, so the position of the slider. And then I broke this position XY up, and you can see all this if you go into the help files for expression references. You can learn this stuff, or you can just copy this code. But it basically says position X equals position X, which is here, which it allows me to modify this position. If I had it equal something else, I wouldn't be able to change it and keyframe it. Position Y equals transform position, which is this position, so I can still move it around and control it, minus the breathing, which is the slider, times 3. And the reason I multiplied it by 3 was because if I didn't, the effect wasn't dramatic enough. So as you can see, it makes his belly kind of move up and down a little bit, which is what we want. So let's add a new slider. So I'm going to right click on the effects controls. I'm going to go to expression control. I'm going to add a slider. I'm going to name the slider hand. Let's do his right hand. Or no, let's maybe do his left hand because there's a little more control going on there. So let's go hand left grip. Okay, it doesn't really matter a lot what we name it because I'm going to use the pick whip to link it, so I don't have to remember everything so specifically. So basically, I'm going to attach, because I use null objects instead of pins. If you were just using pins, you would have to find a way to manipulate the position data. Because I attached it to null objects, all I have to do is manipulate rotations. So let's go down here and have a look at this hand. We'll put this up to the third so it's not so blurry. And I'm going to scroll down and find this particular hand. Oh, so it's our hand left, I believe. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this hand left. Let's just see. This one rotates here. Okay, good. And then let's have a look at this, and this. I'm just opening the rotation values here. And why don't I make these guys pop up? If I pop these little heads up, it makes them visible when I do this. So now I can see these guys. I don't need these here. I'm going to hide them. Don't need that, but I do want, okay, the controls are here and the hands are here. Perfect. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach some rotation controls to this slider. So if I just were to alt-click, let's take hand left, we're not going to add a rotation to. As you can see, if I rotate it, nothing happens. If I were to change its position, however, it does affect the finger. But I don't need to change its position because I'm going to be using this pivot here to do that. So this one I don't really need, so I'm going to turn that guy off. So let's go, we have hand left 2, 0, 1, 4, and 5. Let's just, for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to attach, I'm going to alt-click on rotation, which enables expressions, and I'm going to pick whip and drag to, let's drag to the hand grip slider. Okay, so now if I do this, basically the rotation value is going to be equal to the slider value. So if I rotate this, I get a 1-to-1 ratio response. You see it's 28 here, and then it's 28 here. The only problem with this is if I try to move this value, it doesn't do anything because it's not taking this into account. It's keeping it at 28 because it's only letting it be whatever this is. I don't really want that to happen. What I want to happen is, let's zero this out, I want it to take into consideration, like if I want to fine tune an animation, it doesn't let me do that. So I want to go, instead, we're going to create a variable just to keep our code tidy. So I'm going to say, let's call something hand grip, and say equals hand grip, and I'm going to slide over here to hand grip slider. So now I don't have to use this code every time I want to reference the slider. So now what I can do, new line, I'm going to go this rotation, this, like, always take into consideration this rotation, transform rotation, plus, and then I'm just going to go hand grip. Okay? And what that will do is now it will take into consideration the hand grip rotation, which I can manipulate here, but then I can also put my own rotation on top of that and still have it influenced by the grip. Okay, so it just gives me a bit of a double, a little more control. So I could keyframe this grip thing happening, but then I could also refine the movement if I wanted to make adjustments. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let's link all of these. So I'm going to copy this code. I'm going to take, let's take this finger here, alt-click, paste the code. So let's see what happens now. I've pasted basically exactly the same code. So let's slide the hand grip slider. So as you can see, it's actually rotating both of them. It may not seem that obvious, so let's actually make this more obvious by, I'm going to take this, just like that, and I'm going to go plus hand grip, but let's multiply that variable by a certain amount. So let's go, I don't know, times 1.5. So this will make it 1.5 times, give it 1.5 times the influence on that particular joint. So let's play with the slider. So as you can see, the hand's closing a little bit more, not realistically exactly, but it's just, it's working a little better. I think it's probably good for our purposes. So the only other thing I'm going to do is I want to add a little bit of control to the thumb. So let's turn hand grip back to 0. Let's go to our thumb. This guy doesn't do anything if we rotate him, again, because there's nothing attached to it. So I'm going to hide this guy away. So let's attach this rotation to, again, the hand grip. So I'm just going to take this code, actually let's take this code. I'm going to put it on the base thumb joint here, and let's see what the hand grip slider does. And as we can see, it's going the wrong way on the hand. So what I want to do here is, instead of adding the hand grip, I want to subtract the hand grip from it. Okay, so let's try this again. Alright, there we go. So now there's a little bit more of a grippy thing happening here. As you can see, if you were to make individual fingers, you could do a control for each individual finger and be able to manipulate it like that, which would be pretty amazing because you could get a pretty solid hand grip thing happening. Okay, so that's essentially how I do it. Actually, for this one, the effect might be a little bit too strong on the hand grip, so I'm going to go minus hand grip, and I put this in a bracket so that it treats it as an individual thing. I'm going to go hand grip, and again, so I'll do times, I don't know, 0.8, and that will That way it'll be about 80%. It'll have 80% the influence. If I do the hand grip, it's 80% the influence on the thumb. Awesome. And as you can see, this little finger is actually coming through. That has to do with the overlay settings on the puppet tool. So if I go into here, let's go down to the hand and find the hand. I'll see if I can find it. Which hand are we here? Hand left. Okay. I'm going to open up the puppet tool here, and I'm going to go up here, and I'm just going to grab the puppet overlap tool. Right now, I think what I need to make sure is that this is also overlapping. So I put a pin there, and this means it just pushes it to the top. So I'm going to go down to overlap. This is overlap pin 3. I've already done a couple for the thumb. I'm going to just increase the extent of it to 50. That's not enough. 200. Let's go 150. Okay. And in front 75%. That should be fine. Okay, so let's hide everybody again, and let's go to the controls, and let's see if it works a little better. There we go. This is a bit of a problem here. As you can see, the fingers colliding weird. So here I'm going to do the same thing. Let's just go back to the hand again, and I'm going to make sure that expansion, the overlap pin is there. So this grid, if you have show mesh on, it will show you how it's influencing the mesh, and wherever it's white here means it's going to try to overlap more than where it starts to fade out, and then where there's nothing, that will probably fall behind this white area. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much it. And essentially you can use this technique for raising eyebrows, doing breath, anything like that. Making fists, so you don't have to animate individual fingers over and over again. You could really just do one. So if I, for instance, do this, I can animate that while at the same time modifying an individual finger or a thumb. Like I could, on top of that, go in and still modify his thumb so that I can add an additional rotation to it if I want. But right now I'm going to keep those all at 0. Okay, perfect. All right, well, that's it on that one.